Hi, my name's Suzanne Ottinger. I'm 52 years old. I live in Maryland, and I was diagnosed with stage 4 gastric cancer. My metastasis is in my bones 2 years ago this month. There have been lots of cancer in my family, so I had a couple colonoscopies. I had been complaining for a couple years of dysphagia if I ate anything very thick. And then COVID happened and I kind of ignored it some more. And then I started having a lot of pain when I would eat. And I went in for my colonoscopy and I told them what was going on. And they said, well, you should do an endoscopy. And they found a large tumor at the top of my stomach. Immediately, they could see it had spread all through my torso, my lymph nodes and my bones. So I was diagnosed immediately at stage 4. So there were no surgical options for me. I had to go right into treatment. The first chemo that you get is tough. Chemo can cause your white blood cell count to drop. And for me, it did, just the very first treatment. So I was so upset. I couldn't believe not only did I have this cancer, but I couldn't get my treatments right away. I had to wait. 2 years in, I could realize now, but you don't know, that I was getting enough chemo. It worked for me despite all of the setbacks and the dose reductions and everything else. So I did chemo and immunotherapy for 6 months. And then when I started to get rashes over my body, like almost like an allergic reaction to it. Big sores, was really nasty. And so they drop one chemo, stay on another chemo, and I stayed on my immunotherapy. And I did that for a year. So a total of 18 months. And they did a laparoscopy, endoscopy, and scans, and they really couldn't find any cancer. So they said, well, you possibly had a complete clinical response. So this was wonderful. So I convinced my local doctor to give me a chemo break. But I did recently have a blood test. It's called a liquid biopsy, and it measures cell-free DNA in your blood. It's my second time having it done. I had it done August of 2022, and then this was my repeat August of 2023. August of 2022, there was no cell-free DNA. So they couldn't find any cancer waste in my blood. And this time, unfortunately, there were 4 types. So there is active cancer in my body right now. So I'm getting an endoscopy, colonoscopy this week. I'm going to Hopkins to see what they think about this. Hopefully that means I can just go back on my chemo and that I don't have to, that it's just because I did this chemo break and I can just go back on chemo and have it, back to a baseline of 0, which is what it was. I just, when I was first diagnosed, I told my children, my daughters, I said, I'm barely sick. I'm really barely sick. And the doctors, all they have to do is keep this from getting worse. They don't have to cure me. It'd be nice if they made me feel a little bit better, which they did. I don't have any stomach pains anymore. I don't have a hard time keeping weight on. If anything, I could go on a diet and lose a couple pounds like the rest of us. I think that's it. It's really just your mindset. Like, I'm not ready to die. I don't like feeling sick. I keep my acupuncture appointments every single week. My cancer center also offers massage, and that helps a lot. And I take my herbs and I drink my juices and I try to eat whole foods. I always just make sure I recover between each treatment. And it's my number one priority. If you're diagnosed and they say, your doctor says, you know, it's stage 4, you're on palliative care, we cannot cure you. For me, then I just keep going and going and talking, because if the doctor says to me, I can't cure you, then I just talk to another doctor and they have a little bit more to offer. And every time I talk to a doctor, they have a little bit of something to offer. And when you add all those things together, you're going to live a lot longer. And so it's just not about getting other opinions necessarily as much as it is just getting more tools. Realistically, my hope is that this is going to turn into a chronic situation, and you know, not a quick death sentence. You know, I just think that there's more and more and more coming where maybe we don't have a cure for stage 4 gastric cancer right away, but we can turn it into more of a chronic situation that can be managed for a very long time. Like I remember one person said, I'm not going to buy this car because I'm afraid I'm not going to be alive. And I thought, that's a really bad idea. You should really buy the car. You know, like you should really believe and buy the car, because if you buy that car, then mentally you're going to see yourself in that car 6 months or 9 months from now. And if in your mind you see yourself alive 6 or 9 months from now, then your body will believe that too. And I think it's really important that you are believing in that you have a future.